Let's draw a girl underwater in Procreate. You'll get a free drawing guide, brushes, and a color palette to follow along. I'll guide you step by step and share helpful tips and tricks, secret techniques, and Procreate features I use all the time. To follow along with me, you can download a free file that includes a detailed palette, a reference image, a canvas, a guide, and a paper texture. My patrons get access to a more detailed guide, exclusive lessons, and the full set of brushes. 3 of those brushes are also available for free to everyone, and those are the ones I'll be using in this lesson. Let's create the first layer and pick this color. After that, we'll pick a brush. We'll start with the Signature Graphite. It's the first of the 3 basic brushes. To change the brush size, use the slider on the left. Signature is pressure dependent, so it can be very light or more solid. For the eraser, we'll also use the Signature. I always choose this brush for erasing because it lets you gently soften the drawing or fully erase it. To clear the whole layer, use this gesture. To undo an action, tap with 2 fingers. To redo an action, tap with 3 fingers. I apply more pressure when I need the brush to feel stronger. Try not to focus too much on getting it perfect all at once. If something doesn't look right, you can always fix the shape with the eraser. Double-tap the pencil to switch between brush and eraser. We'll use a bigger brush to fill in the form. After finishing the head shape, let's make a new layer for the hair and choose the pastel pencil, the second of the basic brushes available to everyone for free. To get a thicker line, go over it a few times. If you want a lighter line, don't trace over the line again. The brush's behavior also depends heavily on pressure. You can see it reacts dynamically when I press a bit harder with the pencil. Let me show you a simple way to make a shape feel more solid. If it looks too soft, just duplicate the layer and merge the copy with the original. Here, as you can see, the eraser is taking away part of the texture. I'm doing it deliberately because having the same texture along the edge can look a bit boring. Make a new layer and draw the ear over the hair. If you have a question or something's unclear, let me know. I'll read all comments and I'll definitely reply. Now we're drawing the eyebrows. Don't push down on the pastel pencil too hard when you need a clean and solid line. If you're having trouble while drawing, check your brush size. You might need to make it bigger or smaller. We've got great tools for changing shapes. You'll use them often. Whenever something looks like it needs to be warped or adjusted, just go for the deformation tools. Duplicate the eyebrow layer, flip it, and then move it to the right. Then merge it with the original if you like. Let's create another layer for hair. It should go behind all the current layers. Another great way to add visual interest, nuance, and rhythm is by mixing brushes. You can mix various sizes of the same brush or mix textures from different brushes. For beginners, the free brushes I offer are more than enough, but the full brush set is made for those who want to grow as a professional illustrators. I created 10 well-balanced brushes that complement each other and are always useful. You can watch me draw with all of them in the tutorials on my Patreon and the demo video linked below. In cases like this, I draw with a broad brush first, then shape it with the eraser. If you want the eraser to feel softer, increase the size. If you need a more natural texture, make it smaller. To work with the reference, unlock its layer and move it like I do. You don't need to touch the reference directly, it follows the pencil movement on the canvas. When we need a more natural brush, a smaller Signature Graphite works great. Make a new layer for the nose and shrink the Signature Graphite even more so the texture isn't as visible. Be sure to turn off the guide once the shape is done and you want to see it clearly. Try slightly smoothing out the transition with the eraser. You might find that technique useful. In case you don't like the shape, just use the deformation tools to fix it up. Let's start drawing the eyes. First step is drawing the base eye shape. I recommend using the Signature Graphite for this. If you're using autofill and it fills the whole canvas instead of a shape, no worries. You can control it by moving your pencil left or right, like drawing an invisible line without lifting it. To draw the second eye, I flip the whole canvas horizontally so I don't have to reach across the screen. Time for circles. Make a new layer for the first one. No need to make it perfect. Just draw a rough circle, hold on it for a second, and pick Circle from the pop-up options. Duplicate it, change the color, fill it, and then make it smaller. Then do the same. Make another circle, fill it with a different color, and then resize it. For the highlight, let's create white manually. Go to the Value tab. We only need saturation and brightness here. Drop saturation to 0 and raise brightness to 100. That gives you white. Draw the highlight and turn down the layer's opacity. Now let's move these layers up. Select a layer and tap Clip in Mask. You don't really need it for the highlight, but I like to keep it grouped with the rest. Then I duplicate all of those layers, move them all to the top, and then move them to the other eye shape. You don't have to do this, I just merge them to keep the layers panel tidy. The last step is to add a shadow to the eyes. We'll create a new layer and apply Clip and Mask to it. Then set the brightness to 0 to get black. Let's make the brush bigger so the signature graphite turns into a softer brush. For these kinds of lines, the best option is the mellow pencil. In the default brushes, the pastel pencil can be used instead. To make it as dense as the mellow, you need to duplicate it a few times, just like I showed before. To add more variety, we can not only duplicate and build up the shape, but also rotate and deform the copy of the layer. This lets us control not just the density, but also the variation in texture. If you want to keep things more organized in the Layers panel, group your layers together. We'll draw the lips using the signature graphite and the eraser. Just like with the hair tie, we start by creating the shape, then use the eraser to get it how we want. Let's create a simple shape like this. Here I'll show you how to quickly change and adjust color using the Value tab and Layers opacity. Take a look at the color groups I've put together for you, and if a certain extra color isn't there, that just means I'm giving you a chance to practice picking it yourself using the techniques I showed you. Now let's draw the snorkel also using the signature graphite. We create the shape the same way. The eraser and brush work together as we draw. After watching this lesson, try my tips out in practice if you want to grow as an illustrator. You can memorize my methods, but without practice they won't help much. Next, we'll draw the mask. For now, we're just drawing the basic shapes. We'll add details later when I'll show you how to choose the right colors on your own. If you're having trouble while drawing, check your brush size. You might need to make it bigger or smaller. Also, don't forget to adjust your eraser size. Always keep mixing brushes in mind. Sometimes you won't need this technique, but in some cases it's the key to making a certain element really work. Here we'll tag this color and fill in the area. Then change the blending mode to hard light and lower the opacity to 55%. If you've got the full brush set, you can try using the hazy graphite for the cheeks. Still, that doesn't mean the signature graphite won't do a good job. Let's increase the signature's size to make it softer and more textured. The third basic brush that's available for everyone is the gesture pencil. It works great both for lines and for subtle details like this. Let's add shadow to the neck. The palette already includes the color we need for that. I've left out some extra colors on purpose, so I can show you how to choose the right colors yourself. But before we move on to the theory and practice of working with color, I'll walk you through the key steps for drawing this illustration, and I'll also share some very important tips every beginner illustrator should learn. Again, I'll start by drawing loosely, not focusing on proportions. What matters is building up the mass, and then I shape it with the eraser. This really simplifies and speeds up the workflow. Liquify can be useful for making more experimental changes to shapes and proportions. I don't reach for it often, but it's good to know it's there. The fins are drawn on a single layer. If you need to adjust the shape of one of the elements, use Freehand Selection. It's one of the tools I use the most, and I'll be showing you several ways to work with it. Now let's start drawing the hands. To get it right, simply follow the guide I'll show you. We begin by sketching the finger directions. and then slowly make them thicker while keeping the proportions in check. If one finger turns out thicker, be sure to match the others too. We duplicate the layer to add more density, and then merge it with the original. Next, grab the signature graphite to make things a bit denser and give the texture a more natural look for better shape clarity. Now we're using the deformation tools. See how I combine freehand selection with the distortion features and use these tricks in your own drawings. Now let's cover hand with a new layer and move on. Let's fill in the background and add a light spot to help separate it from the scene. To do that, we'll scale up the signature graphite brush a lot so it's really soft, and paint with a very light touch. If the spot turns out too strong, you can lower the opacity or soften it with the eraser. One more super useful technique I often use is Freehand Selection fill. Just draw the shape you want with the selection tool, then fill it with color. Now you have a base shape ready to be adjusted with the eraser, brush, or deformation tools. Let's create a new layer, pick next color, and create another shape using this method. After this, we can edit these shapes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everything's easy to fix. Some layers need to be on top of everything else, while others go behind the rest. Don't forget you can drag layers up or down if you created one in the wrong place. It's better to use the pastel pencil here and adjust the pressure. Then densify the layer and use the eraser. Draw all the seaweeds and the coral the same way. Next, we add layers with a clipping mask to draw inside the octopus shape. You have all needed colors in the palette. Let yourself draw loosely first, then switch between the eraser and the brush to shape the element the way you want. When it comes to drawing, it's worth giving special attention to clipping mask. This feature is one of the most useful out there. You could actually drop everything else and just stick to a brush, an eraser, and clipping mask. With the right approach, this setup can be just as powerful as any other. With the signature graphite selected, create a new layer and pick a color for the bubbles. Then create a circle, duplicate it, merge all the bubbles, and then set the blending mode to soft light. Now let's draw the highlights using white. Now we are ready to move on to the next chapter of this tutorial, where I'll show you a few more important techniques and teach you how to pick the right colors yourself. To create a secondary color, I usually shift the hue by just a step or two. One step is equal to 5 degrees. That keeps the color close to the original. Then we fine-tune saturation and brightness. The idea is to stay somewhere in between, not too far, but not too close either. Try a few samples to pick the one that works best. Let's look at the difference in color when shifting the hue. In this case, we just need to complement the main color. It all looks out of place. But you should understand that this method gives you practical knowledge on how to control color. Try it in your free time and add variations using saturation and brightness. If you want to practice every week with a new illustration, keep an eye out for my new tutorials. Let's repeat what we just covered. First, we move the hue by 1 or 2 steps, which means 5 or 10 degrees. After that, we tweak saturation and brightness until we get the tone we're looking for. You can sometimes go with a more saturated color on purpose when you don't feel like adjusting everything, and just lower the opacity of the layer instead. Let's change the parameters and fill the lines with a new color. They're standing out too much. We'll try lowering the opacity. I don't usually do it this way, it's better to stick to the method I showed in the beginning. To add a shadow, let's first create a new layer and apply a clipping mask to it. Let's create a color for the shadow by first adjusting the hue and then fine-tuning the combination of saturation and brightness. If you're having trouble picking a color, just go with the same settings I'm using. And if you want more practice, subscribe to my channel so you won't miss new lessons. In every video, I give you a chance to pick colors along with me using different examples. When I'm picking a color, I already know what I'll be using it for. If I need to add some volume, I make the saturation or brightness a bit more noticeable. If I just want to add a slight touch, I go for more moderate settings so it doesn't stand out too much from the base color. But this isn't a strict rule. It all depends on the context. So practice the method I showed you and you'll quickly get a feel for how to work with color. If you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss new tutorials on my channel. Thanks for watching, see you soon!